Trevor, why don't you just start out by introducing yourself?
All right, thank you, Tamara. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming.
My name is Trevor Grieve. I'm a detective with the Toronto Police Service. I currently work in the Homicide and Missing Persons unit. I've been for just over 2 years, and I've been on the service now for just over 17 years.
And just give us a little run through, if you can, of where your career has taken you through the police service.
Well, I would say my career has taken me where I want to this point at least, but it's taken me, I'd say, everywhere, to be quite honest with you, Tamara. I started on the road in uniform in 55 Division and loved it. Had the beaches, had the Danforth area, had quite the mix in that community, and worked everything from a permanent traffic officer to community response unit on the bikes, and lawn bowling down with some of the seniors down in the beaches there, and then moved into like a street crime unit, major crime unit for a while there. Even had a little stint in Asian organized crime for 6 months on a project, and ultimately got into the homicide unit as a constable as part of that training program. And I mean, I already had an idea that's something that I wanted to do, but I'd say at that point fell in love with it, and the ultimate goal was to get back there as a detective, and got promoted, moved out to 41 Division as a sergeant back in uniform, then a divisional detective, and then got my opportunity to come down to this unit in 2020. And so I've been here since February 2020 now.
Wow, awesome. Okay, so I want to go back it's got to be about a year now, a little bit less than a year, I guess. I think it was actually August of last year when I was in Toronto. I was listening to the radio and I hear this interview with a baseball umpire from Toronto who has just returned from the Olympics, from umping the Olympic Games. And wouldn't you know, his name was Trevor Grieve. So I'm listening to this interview. I recognized the name immediately because, of course, I had met you years ago. I don't know how many years ago, but in court where you were not the lead investigator, the detective sergeant I was familiar with, but you were testifying on hours and hours and hours of surveillance video that was the crux of the case. Like it was the integral part of convicting somebody who was ultimately convicted of first-degree murder in this case. And I remember the detective sergeant speaking very highly of you, like this Trevor Grieve is brilliant. Like he has spent so much time on this and on and on. And I chatted with you a bit. You were very, very nice, but not interested in like talking to the media or anything like that, really. So then you fast forward to last year and I'm hearing this interview with Trevor Grieve. I look into it and sure enough, I find out that this umpire, this Olympic umpire, is in fact you. But they never mentioned it. So I sent a message to the person who I was friends with, actually, this person who had been interviewing you on air. And I said, you left out like the most interesting detail, which is the fact that this Olympic umpire is a Toronto police homicide investigator. They're like, what, really? Like, yeah. So anyway, couldn't be undone. So now this is our chance to have that conversation, because from a Toronto police perspective, perhaps one of the most interesting parts about you is that you were an Olympic umpire. So tell me about, like, what is your journey to becoming an Olympic umpire while also working as a full-time investigator?
That's a long story. I've been umpiring, I think, 27 years now. So, I mean, if I go way back with, summer job, cash in the evenings, playing baseball, really quite enjoyed it. And kept doing it while I was going through high school. And even before becoming a police officer, my first actual job was as a professional umpire in the United States. And so for almost 3 years, I traveled around the United States working a bunch of different leagues. And that's a whole process. There's umpire schools and there's 6-week courses and evaluation. But was very lucky and got that job back in 2000. And loved it. It was a great opportunity. Saw all kinds of places, across the US. Unfortunately, nothing in Canada, which was part of what led to quitting because I never got home, right? And living on the road for 6 to 8 months of the year was just not for me. I missed out on the people and the relationships and family and all of that. And so I decided to pack it in, and I did that in 2004, and ultimately got hired in 2005. I took time off. I didn't jump back into policing right away into policing. It wasn't something I wanted to do, actually, Tamara. I wanted to take some time and make sure it was something I wanted to do, and put some thought into it. Right, I did have a relative who was on the job, and I can remember being a young kid and being handcuffed to a tree by him for fun, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I was a young kid in my neighborhood, all the kids are around, and I looked up to him, but I just didn't want to jump into something. Right, that's not fair to me. It's not fair to the service. It's not fair to the community. Right, you as a police officer, you have to want to be a police officer. But I got lucky. I got hired. I got in, and in the meantime, then I started my amateur career. So. Baseball Ontario, Baseball Canada, they were fantastic. They sort of pushed me through the system really quickly. So back then you needed to do 3 national championships before you could do anything at the international level. And a lot of people, you do a national, you wait a couple of years, but they gave me 3 in a row, and that sort of bumped me through the system really quickly. And got my break in 2010. I worked my first international assignment in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and I got lucky timing wise. Right, they had just done a bit of a switchover in the supervisors for what is now the World Baseball Softball Confederation, and that opened some doors, and I just sort of progressed through there. Right, and I got lucky. I mean, you have to, like anything else, right? The stars align for you at some point in time, and doors open, and then you got to take advantage of those opportunities. And so I sort of, while policing, sort of continued to the ranks, and had a lot of really great supervisors, and the Toronto Police Service, to be honest, was very supportive. Right, and through that's unit commanders and my own bosses, because I'm sure one of the questions is, how do you get time off to do these sort of things?
It was one of my questions, actually, especially in the summer.
It takes some planning. The good thing is national championships are 1 week in the summer, and so that wasn't very. But all the international events I've done, for the most part, tend to be around the summer, frankly, because they want to bring in professional baseball players. And most of those players are playing in the minor leagues or the major leagues during that time. And so a lot of the events I found myself doing were sort of March or into September, October, November times. And it was easier to get that off. But it took some planning. I would have to sort of look to the future when we do our leave draw and say, okay, well, if I'm lucky enough and fingers crossed I get to go do that event, I need these weeks off. And so it took some planning. It took a very patient wife who would let me book holidays when I knew I might need them. And then if I didn't, get that opportunity, then, I'd just rearrange our schedule for the next year. But I got lucky, and I've done some great events in some really great places. And so it's opened up the world to me, frankly, in terms of traveling and experiences, and seeing all these great countries and cultures. And I'm really proud of the fact that when I'm there as a Toronto police officer too. Right, like that's one thing people know in that a lot of the international umpiring community aren't professional umpires; they're all amateurs. So we all have backgrounds, we all have different jobs, and so all of them know that I'm a member of the Toronto Police Service, and I'm proud of that. And I like to bring little mementos with them when we're exchanging stuff like that. And
what kind of mementos?
I wear both hats. Whether it's cufflinks or that's the big one. When I was in the homicide unit, I would purchase a couple sets of cufflinks as gifts to give to different people and stuff like that, or glasses or whatever, something that would have our logo on them. And it's sort of tradition in international baseball that you do a little exchange of stuff. And so, guys bring pins or different things like that. And so whatever I could get my hands on, I would bring with me and do an exchange. But, and the service was supportive of all that. And, I do owe them a big thanks, because otherwise I wouldn't have been doing what this led off with, was the Olympics, right? And so it's a great opportunity, and I have probably a lot of people along the way to thank for time off and supporting me through that journey. So
Trevor, a word I've heard you use a few times now is lucky. You've been very lucky with different things that got you to different places in the baseball community, but I just want to like do a little rundown. You kind of brushed over some of it, but I want to do a little bit of a rundown of everything you've done, because I don't think you get to do all these things with luck. So according to baseball-reference.com, you've worked in the South Atlantic League, New York Penn League, Gulf Coast League, and Frontier League. You left the minor leagues in 2004, but continued to work as an amateur umpire after that, also serving as an umpiring supervisor and instructor with Baseball Ontario and Baseball Canada. You've also worked internationally in the 2010 World Junior Championship and 2013 World Baseball Classic qualifiers. You worked second round games of the 2017 World Baseball Classic in Tokyo and the finals in Los Angeles. And that's not all, because a Canadian press story that I found from 2017 said that becoming a professional umpire wasn't necessarily your dream. Actually, before I get to this next part, tell me first why, like, about that becoming this professional umpire wasn't really your dream. Was it because you didn't see it as realistic, or just things just happened and you just weren't expecting it?
Obviously I would say at one point it was a dream, right? I finished university. I went to University of Guelph, and it was really important for me to get my degree. So I got my degree, and then everyone's like, go to umpire school, go to umpire school. And I'm like, what's umpire school? So I had to do a little research in that. But
wait. Everybody's telling you to go to umpire school because clearly like you are really into umpiring, right? Like they don't just have an eye for a future professional umpire.
I think they just wanted to live their lives sort of through me, because they didn't get, so it was pressure.
So you had never even heard of umpire school, though?
I didn't hear about umpire school until I got to a certain point in the umpiring sort of. There's 5 levels of umpiring in Canada. And so by the time I made it to about the third one, the third level, sort of people had started to talk about it. And some of my supervisors at the time had actually done it, just to see what it was like. And so I guess at some point it became a dream. Obviously, it wouldn't have been a dream to do and or else I wouldn't have gone to do it, right? And so it was, but I think I just had to be realistic with it. And, a lot of people would love to be a Major League Baseball umpire, but there's only 72 of them. And so the year I got hired, and for anybody who knows anything about baseball, there was a huge strike in 1998. A lot of guys lost their job. They backfilled a lot of jobs. And so the years right after that, there was a lot of openings. Some years they hired 60 umpires as minor league umpires. And the year I got in, they hired 22 of us out of almost 300 that went to umpire school. And so, I mean, I got lucky. I say that. I mean, but again, it is luck there. Yes, there's skill, right? And fair enough. I understand what you're saying. But, as a supervisor now in our program, you can watch some umpires, and an umpire might have a certain play in a game that nobody else has that entire tournament. And if they nail it, they look fantastic. So that's the luck. The luck is what presents itself. And then you got to sort of step through that door and be successful and do it the right way. But, I went down, and I think after a while, I just realized, like, in the 3 years, like you said, those leagues there, in the 3.5 years I was a professional baseball umpire, I think they only hired 1 Major League umpire. And so I was just a realist. Like, there was 220 minor league umpires. They hired 1 in 3 years or 3.5 years. And I thought, I just don't want to come back in 10 years because, most people don't know this, but a minor league umpire spends 10 to 11 years before they get that chance to become a Major League umpire. And if you don't get it, you get that, hey, thanks for coming out, and head back home. Now you're 30 to 35 and you have no job. You don't know what you're going to do. And I just didn't want to be in that position, right? And I wasn't enjoying living on the road. I wasn't enjoying, listen, I alternated Chinese food buffets, Pizza Hut buffet, and the grocery store for sandwich. Those were my 3 meals alternating pretty much my entire 3 years in the minor league baseball, right?
So I read about that. I read about that, the Chinese buffets, the sandwiches and grocery stores, and I read Pizza Hut, but I did not realize it was the Pizza Hut buffet.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a lot more respect for you now.
Bar.
So
Salad
I have a question
included.
for you. So I have a
All
question
right.
for you. Apple dessert pizza or cherry dessert pizza?
Oh, but I have both.
Well,
Why do you have to have why just
you
one,
cherry.
Tamara? Why?
I'm an apple kind of gal. I preferred the apple one, and a friend of mine would every time I would come home to Regina and visit from Toronto, we would go for the Pizza Hut buffet, and people would not understand of all the delicious restaurants we have here, why the Pizza Hut buffet. And for me, it came down to that apple strudel on the pan crust. But anyway,
To me, it came down to this. I was making $19 a day per deal. And so as part of that contract, you were guaranteed a meal at every ballpark after your night game. But that meal at some places was like 2 hot dogs from the grandstand. And like, you just had to make do with what you were getting. And, at least at Pizza Hut, you did have a salad bar, you had some pasta, Chinese buffet didn't always sit very well, which is a problem when you're an umpire, It's,
yeah, I was going to
it
say,
is what
you're behind home plate, you're crouched down. How do you do that like day in and day out on that diet?
Nobody appreciates that an umpire doesn't leave the field for the most part for those 3 or 4 hours, right? Players get to leave every half inning, right? But you're out there for 4 hours sometimes. So you make do. You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Yeah. I don't know why we're going down this road here. Let's change this from this subject here.
Okay. Back to the
So anyways,
Olympics.
I went down. I don't even know where we got thrown off track.
I know we're having too
I went
much
to
fun.
umpire school. It was a dream. I became realistic.
But it wasn't.
Thought
But
about
it
for a
wasn't
while.
really it wasn't really a dream. But it was a dream. But I did read that the Olympic umpiring was a dream of yours. Is that safe to say? Going to the Olympics would have been a dream?
I think that would have been a dream. I mean, that's a tough one, right? They're very different. Like the World Baseball Classic umpiring wise, it might be the pinnacle of umpiring, right? Because that's hosted by Major League Baseball. And you look around on that field and, you're looking at guys that, all Major League Baseball players, right? The Olympics is just, it's experience on its own. But it is amateur. A lot of, even looking back last year, teams like, Major League Baseball, any of their players, right? So you're looking at sort of anyone in the minor leagues and down, except for some of your teams like Japan, and those teams brought their best players. But North American guys weren't released to those teams. So, but it was, right? Like as a kid growing up, and, you said earlier, I think we were chatting, but I swam competitively for years. I played baseball. I think every kid wants to go to the Olympics, and I just wasn't meant to be that athlete at the Olympics. That's just the reality.
Okay,
But
so
to
wait a
go
second. So
any
you just casually sort of brushed over something there, that you swam competitively. You didn't just swim competitively.
That's the goal, Tamara, to casually brush over things before
you swam for about 18 years up to the Olympic trials and Commonwealth trials. So I assumed that is where the Olympic seed was maybe planted for you, but you couldn't have imagined at the time that it would be as an umpire. You were probably hoping as a swimmer, obviously, but as an umpire, maybe not.
Yeah, I loved it. I would have loved to have done it as a swimmer, right? And I did that all the way through university. My parents, I guess, decided to throw me in a pool very young. I don't know if I was too much for them to handle, or they just needed me to get out there, and they thought, drop them in a pool and let's see how that happens. But I was competitive swimming by 5. I think by 5.5, I was swimming in Scarborough and Toronto, and I did it all the way up until university, and did some of my university visits for NCAA stuff, and I just decided I needed some time off. It was a long haul. I actually took my first year off at University of Guelph, and then I got back into swimming for my last 3 years at Guelph, which was awesome. It was actually one of the best decisions I did for me personally. I wasn't making it to the Olympics, but at that point in life, you're 18, 19, and I was glad to meet a whole bunch of friends at school that weren't part of a team, right? So I ended up with these like 2 different groups of friends, which made university a great experience, right? And so that first year off, and then it was just a different environment. It wasn't 4 or 5 a.m. swim practice in university. I think my coach knew better. They were evening practices. I very rarely made a morning practice if they were offered, but different. It was just a fun environment. It was great to be part of a team there. And so you're right. I probably had the dream as a swimmer, probably had the dream as a player to be an MLB player, but at some point it's to the Olympics, and it was a great experience. And for people that don't follow baseball's not in the Olympics anymore. This was a one-time. It's not back in 24. It's not back in 2028 officially. So they're pushing hard to get it back, and they're trying to, as a program, and say I'm somewhat involved with the World Baseball Softball Confederation now, and on the umpiring side, and some instructing with them, but they're doing a fantastic job in growing the sport. And we do hope that in 2028 it's back in Los Angeles and it's supported well, but it's definitely not in 2024 in Paris. So I'm glad to have done it. And it was a different experience, very different, right? Still COVID times, still quarantined, no fans in the stadium, no sightseeing, no going out for meals and experiencing what, Tokyo is. Because, baseball's taken me to Tokyo 4 times now. And that was my last one. But all the other times I've, done blogs, I've done different stuff, but I don't know what I'd blog. I literally was trapped in a hotel and got on a bus, drove to a stadium that was empty, drove back. And if I had a night off, I was Ubering in ramen or some sort of a Japanese dish to enjoy it while sitting in my hotel room. So
no Pizza Hut buffet over there?
No Pizza Hut buffet. I did stick to Japanese dishes for the most part, although my wife will see this at some point, I'm sure, and tell you I'm not a very adventurous eater. So I did stick to certain things that I enjoy. But
so do you like sushi? Do you like sashimi?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not.
No kind of sushi?
No kind of seafood in general for the most part.
No
other than
seafood
fish.
at all? Okay, I thought you were just going to be a no raw fish kind, because I'm like, I dabble, but I am just a dynamite shrimp roll kind of gal. Like my husband and I, we might order sushi, and tonight actually, he'll get the raw salmon and all this stuff, and I will just get like the dynamite shrimp roll. But I cannot imagine a life without any seafood at all. So what did you eat over there?
The rule in this house is when I'm on call, my wife eats anything she wants. So that's generally sushi one night. She'll order an Indian another night. She likes it when I'm gone for, the first 3, 4, 5 days of investigation. And that's her freedom to eat whatever she wants. But I would stick to things like chicken dishes and ramen and noodle dishes. And I'm just not adventurous. And I'm not sure at this point in my life I'm going to change. So
exactly.
Call me stubborn, but
you seem content in what you've been eating and what you've been experiencing. The when you went over to the Olympics, then is it right that you were only one of 12 umpires working those Olympic games?
Yeah, we had 12 umpires from around the world. It was nice. I knew most of them from other events along the way. So there's 12 of us with one supervisor, and I think I worked in total, 6 games, maybe a couple more, 6 to 8 games. And that's it. There's only 12 of us. So it was a small group, and we were all fortunate to be there. It was
but you couldn't really hang out with each other, as you said, right? Like you're in isolation.
Oh no, we could hang out on the floors. Like we were allowed quarantine was in the hotel, but because we had to test every day. So for people, who are tired of COVID testing, I think that trip alone, I took 18 COVID tests. I think I had to take one every single day. 2 before, 2 coming back, referred into the city somewhere to get an actual PCR that we needed to get back into Canada, as opposed to the ones they were doing. But I think over COVID, I'm probably close to 30 tests by this point. It's
oh yeah, me too, absolutely.
Over 30, still over 30, right? I understand it's getting around, but I'm going to do my best to not get it still.
Yes. So. Wow, good for you. You haven't gotten it yet. Yeah, we ducked it. We ducked COVID for the first couple of years, and then finally the wave crashed on our house. Myself, our 3 kids, but not my husband, even though the kids are like climbing all over him, and He's one of those like superhumans. And maybe so are you. Maybe you are not only an Olympic umpire, but or an almost Olympic swimmer, but also and a Toronto police officer, homicide investigator, but also a superhuman with incredible immune system. Maybe that will be our next conversation, Trevor.
Whatever it is that's working for now, let's just knock on wood, it keeps going. So
okay, so
and I try. My wife works in a hospital, so I mean, I think there's even more, be more conscientious about who I'm around, and regulations have lifted a little bit, but I still take extra precaution because even for her sake, right? She takes it and she's dealing with sick patients, and I love her. She's fantastic at what she does. She works in nephrology, and I would never want her to get it and catch it and spread it to her patients, because most of them are on dialysis. Our household is very conscientious about it. So I'll just keep rapid testing. That's all there is.
You probably like it by now. You would probably feel like weird not having a rapid test on any given day, I imagine.
The reality is, Tamara, like in my role now in our office, and this from covering all of our homicides over the years, I don't want to say the first 48 because everyone sees that show, but most people can relate to it, right? The first 48 in reality could be the first 72, the first 96. It could be the first week. Every investigation is obviously different, but other than that, we're not like, officers in uniform in their primary, the primary response units who are out there every day dealing with the public and exposed to it, going call to call to call, working hard, dealing with, every member of the community and risking that exposure, right? So, our exposure is more limited to very few exposures, interviewing people, canvassing witnesses. So a little less risk than those that are in uniform out there every day, in the front line.
A lot more controlled, less unpredictable. Yeah, less volatile, I guess.
Somebody, right? Like we control the interview in terms of like the setup in the room, and is it big enough, and can we still have privacy, and the doors open, that uniforms, a uniform officer's attending somewhere, they're limited to where they are. That could quarters, they don't choose the environment, they just have to deal with it, right? And we can plan a little bit better in how we're doing that and try to keep us all safe. But it's made its way through our office like every other unit in the service, and my team too. And you just hope that everyone's healthy, and that you don't get too sick from it, right? And all of our thoughts go out to people that have had loved ones and have lost people during COVID. It's sad. And somebody in our own umpiring community was from out west there, died as a result of some complications from COVID. So it hits close to home for all of us, right? And that's the reality of it. And you just hope if you get it, you're not that sick, and you make it through. So anyway,
I'm sorry to hear about your loss. Well,
what?
Go ahead.
I'm just going to say, I mean, that's what's happened during this pandemic, right? Everybody has those losses, and it's sad, and your thoughts go out to them, and everybody does their best to stay healthy. So.
Given that you just sort of started talking about policing, I want to go back to something that you said earlier in the conversation, which is that the thought that you put into when you were leaving the minor leagues, I believe, and decided you want to like move back to Canada and be closer to family and become a police officer. What was it then that made you sure that this was the career path that you wanted to take? Aside from wanting to handcuff like a kid on your street to the tree.
No, I didn't want to do that at that point. I just thought
did.
It was the coolest thing. And my uncle's retired now, so that's okay. He can't get in any trouble anymore at this point. So
yeah.
But it was just a matter of thinking between the two, right? And I started comparing the two roles. And so you think of a police officer and the laws, and then umpire, and you're dealing with the rules. So I was like, okay, well, I got the rules of baseball and I've got laws, and then it was sort of like, well, in umpiring, you often have to de-escalate a situation, right? You're out there, a manager's getting mad at you, a player's getting mad at you, they're getting mad at each other for all you know. And so the tools that you're using to de-escalate a situation, or a term we often use in umpiring is game management. And to me, game management is all encompassing, right? It's how you present yourself from when you walk on the field. And think about a police officer. Think about how a police officer, they dress, and how they present themselves. Are their shoes shined? Are they polished? Is their uniform in great condition? Same thing in umpiring. You walk out on the field and you look like $1,000,000. Right away people look at you. And so that comparison, like how you're presenting yourself, and the game management, and what can you do? Like game management is also interacting with coaches and players. And first thing you do as an umpire, and you try to teach this to younger umpires, is the catcher comes out, you introduce yourself and you tell them your name and you shake their hand. And right, so policing, I'm going to introduce myself. There's just so many similarities between them, right? And then on the other side is that being assertive. You have to be assertive as an umpire, right? Whether that's safes and outs, balls and strikes. What's your strike three mechanic look like? Everyone sees an umpire out there on the field and they're ringing up strike threes, and they think it's but as a police officer, you got to go into an unknown situation and you have to take charge. And so I just started looking at the two, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so many similarities between the two. I loved umpiring, and this is sort of a natural fit to me. And back when I interviewed, it was 2004, 2005, but I still think we're doing competency interviews. And something as simple as a question is, how do you show confidence? Or tell me a time you showed confidence. Well, I can tell you lots of different stories, from umpiring, when bench clearing brawls, people throwing at people, where you have to show confidence or you have to act in a certain way. And sort of helped me through that interview process, and having scenarios and stuff that you could talk about, real life experiences that I think helped during that interview process. So that's sort of how I saw it, and I thought about it, and they were just so similar that it seemed like a natural fit to me. And I'd always heard great stories and watched my uncle through his career and some of the stuff he did, and it was a natural fit. And so I took the time, though. I really didn't want to rush into it, right? It is a commitment, and I hope that I know that this is talking about building, part of this series is building trust within the community, but I want people to know that a lot of police officers don't just get into this because it's a job. They want to do it, right? And they put thought into doing it, and they want to do it for various reasons. And I put thought into doing it before I even started, and I hope that people see that, and I think it shows through in my policing. So you have to love what you're doing, right? You really
Totally. It's really interesting, though, to hear you talk about your ability to have confidence and to be assertive in those situations where you need to be. But when I'm talking to you, like, you are so personable. And I think about you, lawn bowling down with the folks in the beaches when you're in 55 division. Like, I can't help but think that I know you're a really bright guy. I've seen you testifying in court. I know the work you've done investigatively, but I can't help but think that your personality has also been a huge asset for you. Just your ability to make people comfortable, and you're genuine. Like, would you agree with that? I mean, I'm not telling you pat yourself on the back, you're a good person, but seriously, like, do you enjoy that, connecting with people and building those relationships that way?
Yeah, I think I'm genuine with people that I deal with. I mean, I think that's, as a police officer, in my role, in any role, people see through that. If you're not genuine and they don't trust you, you're there to take a statement from them or provide them guidance or talk to them. If they don't trust you or they don't find you personable, then they're gonna hold back and not be forthcoming and open up to you. And as an investigator, I want them to share everything with me, right? So sometimes that's a matter of forming that connection with someone and talking to them about anything but what's happened, until you get to that point where you do develop that rapport. And maybe that's not right away. Maybe you have to put in that effort a couple times till somebody will reach out to you, right? And that you've dealt with victims. It's not always the first time that they're forthcoming, and they want to build some trust with whoever they're speaking to. And I like to be genuine, but I like to have fun, right? And you talk about that. I still love that time when I actually became a member of that lawn bowling club after that. I think I did it for almost 2 years. I did. I was biking along the boardwalk. I was in the community response at the time, and I saw all the seniors out there having a great time, and I biked right up to the fence, and they're happy to see a police officer in uniform. And I was in the community response job was to develop those relationships. And before I knew it, I was, I don't know if I invited myself or got invited, one or the other, but I was lawn bowling. And then before I knew it, I was setting up a day for our whole office to go down there, and we all got taught how to do it, what the rules were, and join the people of the community center for an hour one day, and loved it enough that I joined it. And yes, I will admit that I even joined into the odd euchre night or two with
What's
the
a
ladies
euchre
down there.
night? What is that?
What's euchre night? You don't know what euchre is? A card game of euchre?
No, I don't.
Stop it, Tamara, stop it.
What is it?
It's a card game. It's a card game I can't teach you a euchre. You're gonna have to get the app and
Yeah,
learn
but
it yourself.
I wonder if this be me being from Saskatchewan. I grew up in Saskatchewan, and you having grown up in the GTA. I wonder if this is one of those regional differences. Like we call sweaters bunny hugs, you call them hoodies. What's euchre? Is it like cribbage? Is it bridge?
Bunny hugs?
Yes. So a hoodie, it's very weird. It's inexplicable, but you talk to anybody in Saskatchewan, you're wearing a hoodie, it's bunny hug. So when I started working in Toronto as a crime reporter, I was always very tempted when you guys would put out a suspect description of somebody wearing a black hoodie. I just wanted to squeeze in black bunny hug, but it didn't really work. So
that was my question. You just stole it from me. I was going to say, did you ever get it into a broadcast? Because if you did, everybody watching you that night in the city of Toronto was saying, what's a bunny hug?
Yeah. I wonder if I was a crime reporter in Saskatchewan, I wonder if it would have still felt natural describing a suspect as having been wearing a black bunny hug, or if that would have like made me crack a smile or something. I don't know. Anyway, okay, euchre. Tell me about euchre. What is this?
Euchre is a card game with 5 cards, 4 people. I guess you could play with 6. You only use the 9 through ace, and you play to 10. But in a euchre night, you actually rotate table to table and you keep scores, and it's just a fun game. It's not easy to learn because, like, have you played hearts or spades or any of those type of games?
Yeah, not for a long time, but yes, yeah.
So in euchre is if the suit is going to be clubs, the highest club's the jack of clubs, the next highest is the jack of spades.
Okay.
And then you go ace of clubs, kings of clubs, and you just follow suit. I learned from my grandparents, but and they laid the law down. They laid the smack down with cards. There was no messing around. So
okay.
Now hard to play unless I'm playing with people that know what they're doing, because to teach people it's pretty difficult. It's hard to get the hang of.
Okay. But you got into these euchre nights through the lawn bowling community. Is that right?
I was a member. They gave me my own set of, I don't know what you call them anymore. Balls with chalk and everything. And it was fun. It was something to do while I was down there, and
but you're no longer a member. You're no longer a member.
No longer a member. That didn't last more than a year or two. I can't remember if I made the second year, but it was fun. And
is your heart fluttering a little bit at those memories? Like, are you kind of feeling like, I kind of want to do some lawn bowling this weekend? Is that making
I still play bocce ball, which is very similar to some buddies at the cottage. So I don't miss the lawn bowling, but I wouldn't be afraid to get out there on I don't even know what you call it. Do you call it a pitch? Do you call it I don't know.
You tell me. You were a member. I've never played.
Listen, I'm rusty when it comes to my lawn bowling, okay?
You're playing on the beach. Maybe you're playing in sand. I don't know.
No, it's on grass. Nice manicured grass, like a golf green.
Okay.
There we go.
I have one more policing question for you, because when you were talking about all the similarities between baseball umpiring and being a Toronto police officer, I think that would surprise a lot of people on the surface. Like what you were saying all made sense, but really they are very different things. Like you're talking about a sport, a game that by and large doesn't have any, life and death consequences, anything like that. And then as a police officer, you are dealing with people's lives, with trauma, there are certainly happy occasions like connecting with community members, like you said, but you're dealing with real stuff that impacts people's lives, people going to jail, to prison, all that stuff, community safety. Was there anything about that, moving from umping to policing that surprised you, or that impacted your life in any way, would you say? Because in that sense, they are very, very different environments.
They are different environments, but I would say, baseball is a sport, but for me at that point, it was a job. And for those people, I'm not going to use the word death because you can't make the comparison between the two, but the stress and pressures on those players, for them, it's life or death. And I know that sounds bad, but that's, some of those people are putting their livelihoods on the line thinking they're going to do something in baseball. And if they don't do baseball, so, you strike them out on strike 3 and they get demoted the next day because, and they think that pitch is outside. I mean, there was a lot of stress involved with that. And I don't think people are very critical of umpires, and you see it all over social media and online, the major league umpires, right? And, it's a job. You're expected to go out there and be perfect from the beginning and stay perfect. But when you switch into policing, you're right, it becomes completely different, right? In the sense that it's different. The people, the victims, the people you're dealing with, the witnesses, it's walk off a baseball field and leave that game behind. I know I did the best, but the biggest change coming over was adjusting to that, what you're taking home at the end of the day, right? And everybody likes to say, as a police officer, you sign your memo book off at the end of the day and you leave home. No, you don't. That's the reality. You see stuff that nobody should see, or you're pretty much seeing most people on one of the worst days of their lives. I mean, I think that's fair, right? And and even if it's not a homicide investigation, or it could be a break and enter, right? And our house got broken into a couple of years ago, and you just feel so vulnerable after that, right? Like, that's your safe space. And so yeah, for us, it's, you're going to a break and enter, but for that person, that's their sanctity, that's their safe place. And now that's been broken into, and you no longer feel comfortable at home. And so then you see stuff, right? You go to a domestic and you do the best you can, and stats are what stats are, that people stay in abusive domestic relationships for quite a long time. And you would know better than me, but I don't remember the number of times, like upwards of almost 30 times being a victim of a domestic assault before you report it to police for the first time. And so when they do, you're dealing with people on those worst days of their lives every day. It's hard to take home, right? And you need to find a mechanism or a way to deal with it when you go home, that you can't take it home, right? Because then it's affecting your livelihood at home. And if you have relationships or spouses or partners or children or whoever it is you're living with, right, you take that home. Whereas umpiring, you don't take that home, right? That's a tough day. I'm going back out on the field the next day, and so be it. So that's the biggest change, I think, is on the mental side, the psychological side of what you're taking home. And policing's not for everybody, right? We do lose people in the service in their first year, like they're not sure what they're getting into. But I think our job and our service has done a really good job reinforcing the importance of that, and providing resources to officers. It's, for some units, like even our homicide unit, psychological services are mandatory. It's mandatory that we see somebody once a year, and that applies to all kinds of different units. I think that's child exploitation, human trafficking. One of the things I say about my unit, and I love working in homicide, right? It's an honor to work in our unit, right? We speak for those that can't speak anymore. But so do some of those other units, right? Child exploitation, they speak for children who are toddlers, babies, they speak for them. So we're not the only ones that do that. Child Youth and Advocacy Center, or CYAC, people refer to them as, they do the same. They speak for victims that can't speak for themselves. All those units, but you have to have a mechanism to be able to check in with somebody and make sure you're okay. And maybe we have lots of tools that can deal with that. The service has done a really good job. Mind fit programs, wellness, all kinds of different stuff. And they've even introduced it to our probationary officers, right? Like we said, we lose a lot of officers, but that check-in your first year now to make sure you know what you're doing. So I've gone off track again. You've probably realized that I can do that really easily when I get started talking,
No, but I think
but
it's all, everything you're talking about is so important. And I wonder, Trevor, like if there's specific mechanisms that you've found that have worked for you that maybe you've passed on to younger officers. Not to say you're not young, you're still a young officer, but officers coming up through the ranks that,
so sweet.
that have been tried and true that help you to separate. I know you can never completely separate your life from your job, especially in the role you're in now when you're on call, all that stuff. But have you found anything that works really well in terms of maintaining that balance and taking care of your mental health?
I don't know if you can recommend one thing in particular for it, like an individual officer. I think each individual officer has to find what that is for them, right? Like who that is that they can talk to, and maybe not everybody wants to talk. Maybe you're decompressing at the end of the day. It was walking your dog, right? Like my dog was spoiled. I think he got like, he'd walk 10 kilometers a day because he'd have his morning and his evening, but that was the time for me to decompress and, having a nice dinner and talking to your spouse about whatever it is that you're doing. And, I think as a supervisor now, I'm in a different role too, but, I really need to check in with my officers, right? That's the thing that, to make sure they're okay. And, especially in our unit, in the homicide unit, there's a lot of us, half of us are full-time, like, so detective sergeants, we're full-time. But most of the constables, and we've expanded a little bit, but most of the constables who come to our program are part of a training program, right? So they come for a year, they join us. I'm not sure they all know what they're getting into right away, right? It's something new, it's a new exposure to them. And so throughout that year, you really have to check in with them and make sure that they're okay. They might not have expected what they're going to see, and just pull them aside when the chance comes. You're sitting in the car having a coffee, check in. And if they need something, or make sure that resources are available. And that's become even harder with COVID because for everyone around the world, right? We don't see each other as much in person. We don't have that. I don't want people thinking that all police officers spend all day going for a coffee, but the reality is we walk across the street for a coffee. And maybe that's the check-in time, right? That's the time to just see how people are doing and check in on them. And so I can't say that it's one particular thing, but I would say that it's encouraging them to find something, right? Whether that's a sport, whether that's, when I was uniformed, I played Sunday night slow pitch with a lot of guys, and that was our stress for the week. We could get together and chat, or now I'm trying to do better for my wife, to do some yoga with her and do some stuff like that. I know it's
hot yoga.
No. Simmer down there. Simmer down. We'll start slowly here, but it's just something, right? And so something that we can do together, which is great. And it's good for me, and it's good for your physical side. Some guys like to go to the gym in the mornings. Something. So
okay, I'm going to end on a much lighter note and hopefully help you out a little bit, because maybe somebody who's watching this will have an excellent idea to share with you. Before we started recording this conversation, I knew that you had some sort of appointment this morning, and I asked you what appointment it was, and you said you went to the dentist. How long have you been seeing the same dental hygienist for?
I think we just celebrated our 40th anniversary.
40 years. The same dental hygienist. So that actually might be what gets you into the Guinness Book of World Records. Do you think?
I don't know when she's going to retire. I hope not soon, but I actually asked her, I said, you have to have actual hard copies of the first time I went to visit you. Because I've followed her now to 3 different locations, right? I don't know what it is, but I have followed her to 3 different locations. There are other members of the police service who use her too. So, we have some friends in common that way, but I want to see the actual date. And to our conversation, I wanted to know, what do you buy someone for their 40th anniversary? So right. I'm not there when it comes to my marriage. I have a long way to go. I got lots of milestones to go still. But if somebody out there does know what you get for 40, and it's not going to cost me an arm and a leg, I will have to consider getting it for her. I mean, that's only fair, right? we're celebrating 40 years.
Well, but we should also mention that you did not celebrate the 10-year or the, I mean, you would have still just,
Fair enough.
we went, you didn't celebrate the 10 or the 20 or the 30, but for whatever reason, you feel 40 is substantial enough. So it's not like you're needing to work your way up from, you're not working your way up to like a diamond ring or anything. It's not like you started with the flowers and a box of chocolates. Now you're working, we could really start anywhere. So anybody out there,
I just try to entertain her with a few good jokes each day and keep it lively. I'm the first appointment in the day, few smiles, few laughs, get the day going. But, what does it say about relationships, right? 40 years. I could tell you that I've also had the same family physician for close to 40 years too.
what?
And when these two ladies retire, I'm going to be in some trouble. I don't know what I'm going to do.
I was just going to say, I'm kind of worried about you right now because two very important people in your life they must be getting close to retiring. And then your teeth are just going to start falling out and your health is going to just fall by the wayside. I don't know. I'm kind of concerned.
Are you calling me old or them old? Just so I can clarify here.
I'm saying that they are right. Hey, I have also had a conversation for this series with somebody who used to spend time in the mounted unit. And they told me that the horses usually retire about like halfway through their lifespan. So they can have a long, restful, playful, even retirement. And so I don't think anybody nearing retirement is old. Hell no. I think a lot of people would say that maybe that's when life starts. You can really start living. So nobody's old, but I am worried that you're about to, you're going to need to find yourself a new dental hygienist. You're going to need to, maybe your dentist will provide that for you. I would hope so.
I'm going to have some big life changes.
Yes.
I'm going to have some big life changes.
Again, from swimming to umping to policing to umping some more to your inaugural lawn bowling game and euchre night to now finding a new.
At least I don't plan on leaving policing.
Yes.
And to be fair, I have retired from umpiring now. So I did decide to retire after the Olympics. I thought you can't go out on a better note than the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
And so still heavily involved. I'm not walking away. I mean, I owe way too much back to Baseball Ontario and Baseball Canada, but it's a different role now, right? That's teaching clinics and mentoring and supervising, but not taking away, not taking away assignments from other people that, their time has come. But so I've put a couple of those aside and now right now the focus is work and still doing on all that other side, although now I work Monday to Friday. The compressed work week schedule was much different before. So there was a little bit more leeway for some umpiring stuff than there is now, but still about time management. Like
not only Monday to Friday, but sometimes you're working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you get assigned to a case and then you're working Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 24 hours here, 48 hours there, 72 hours, as you said. So much more demanding.
As we're filming this right now, I'm number one on call. So we might have filmed this just in the nick of time because it is leading into a weekend here.
Yes.
And,
well, I hope for the sake of humanity, you are not called, ever, really. Let's
I would love to say our numbers are 0 and hope that they are, but I would love us to get our numbers down, right? That's the reality. To get our numbers down, but that's a much bigger discussion and a much bigger problem that we're not going to solve today.
But maybe we can figure out what you're going to get your dental hygienist for your 40-year anniversary. So anybody watching,
somebody has a suggestion when they ultimately see this, I would love to take that from them. And if it's good, I will give full credit.
Maybe that'll be a follow-up conversation, you and your dental hygienist side by side. And you're talking like this, you're telling your jokes with your mouth wide open and she's laughing, but really she has no idea what you're saying.
We have our own language. I can speak with my mouth wide open and she understands. That's how long we together, right? So just like two good police officers that work together for a long time know what the other's thinking before it even happens.
Yes. So. She knows when you open your mouth, that tooth has been bothering you. She knows she's got to recommend Sensodyne for you for the next 6 to 8 weeks. She just knows.
Tamara, if she's done her job right, there shouldn't be any teeth bothering me.
That's true. Well, you got to do your job right too, though. Okay. Anyway. Okay, Trevor. Thank you,
for having me.
Thank you so much. This has been such an enjoyable conversation, and I'm so happy that it will bring joy to no doubt many other people's lives. So thank you. Thank you for your work on and off the field, so to speak.
I will say the same to you. You know, you're right. We met in 2015, I think, or 2016 for that case. And I want to thank you because you did a lot of coverage on that case for us, and that was an important case. It was a big case, but it was a good case, and I appreciate what you're doing with this too. Right, this is you know, I saw the package you put together in terms of what this is and the goals, and I think it's great. I think anytime we can communicate and reach out to members of the public and get to show a different side of us and not just the side they see, like we said, on those worst days, it's something great, and we do need to build some trust and as a service and rebuild some trust, and I hope this helps. So thank you for the invite today, and I know we'll talk again soon.
Oh yeah, with your dental hygienist. Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you.